Captain James Reed checked his watch for the third time in 10 minutes. The cargo bay of his ship, Aurora's Edge, hummed with the quiet efficiency of automated systems, but his mind was elsewhere. His 8-year-old daughter Emma should have been back from the observation deck by now. "Dad, look what I found." Emma's voice echoed through the ship's corridors as she ran toward him, her small hands clutching something colorful. James smiled despite his worry. Ever since her mother died 2 years ago, Emma had become his constant companion on these trade runs. The ship was her home, her school, and her playground all rolled into one. He couldn't bear to leave her on Earth with relatives she barely knew. "What is it this time, sweetheart?" he asked, kneeling down to her level. Emma opened her hands to reveal a small, crystalline fruit that glowed with soft blue light. "I found it in the market area. It tasted like strawberries and lightning." James felt his blood turn cold. The fruit was still partially eaten, juice staining Emma's lips blue. "Emma, where exactly did you get this?" "From a pretty bowl near the big lizard people. They had lots of them arranged in circles with candles and stuff, but they weren't watching and I was so hungry after walking around." The ship's communication system crackled to life. "Captain Reed, please report to Docking Bay 7 immediately. This is Station Commander Miller. We have a situation." James grabbed Emma's hand. "Come on, we need to go right now." They hurried through the corridors of Crossroads Hub, the massive space station that served as a neutral meeting point for dozens of alien species. The station buzzed with activity as always, but James noticed more security guards than usual, and they all seemed to be heading in the same direction he was. Docking Bay 7 was crowded when they arrived. James recognized several human diplomats, their faces grave. But what made his heart sink were the 7-foot-tall figures standing in the center of the group. The Kethivar were impossible to mistake for anything else. Their scaled hide ranged from deep green to black, and their eyes glowed like amber coals. Each one wore ceremonial armor that had been polished to mirror brightness. But it was their posture that worried James most. They stood like coiled springs, ready for violence. "Captain Reed." Station Commander Miller approached him, sweat beading on his forehead. "We need to talk." The largest of the Kethivar stepped forward. His armor bore more decorations than the others, marking him as their leader. When he spoke, his voice rumbled like distant thunder. "I am High Commander Vex of the Warfleet Blood Talon. Your offspring has committed a grave offense against my people." Emma pressed closer to her father's side. She was smart enough to sense the danger even if she didn't understand it yet. "What kind of offense?" James asked, though he already suspected the answer. A younger Kethivar, his scales bright, green with youth, stepped forward. "The human child consumed the sacred fruit of bonding. It was prepared for my passage ceremony. Without it, I cannot become a true warrior. The fruit creates a spiritual connection between the consumer and the intended recipient," Vex explained. "Your daughter has stolen what was meant for warrior apprentice Tor. She has bound herself to him through ancient ritual." James felt the world spinning. "It was an accident. She's just a child. She didn't know." "Ignorance does not erase the deed," Vex said. "The sacred fruit was blessed by our high priests and prepared with ceremony spanning 3 days. Its consumption creates what we call a soul debt. The one who eats what belongs to another must serve until the debt is paid." "She's 8 years old," James said, his voice rising. "You can't seriously expect—" "The child is too young to serve," Vex agreed. "Therefore, by our law, her parent must take her place. You will serve warrior Tor as his bondmate until the next lunar cycle." The human diplomats immediately began protesting. James heard phrases like international incident and violation of human rights, but the words seemed to come from far away. All he could focus on was Emma's small hand in his. "What does bondmate mean?" he asked. Tor answered this time. "You would serve as my personal attendant, guard, and advisor. You would share my quarters, fight beside me, and your life would be bound to mine until the debt is paid. And if I refuse?" The silence that followed was deafening. Finally, Vex spoke. "Refusal would be seen as an insult to our entire species. We have treaties with your government, yes, but honor matters more than paper. refuse, and those treaties become worthless. James understood the implication. The Kethvar were one of the most powerful military forces in this sector of space. War with them would be devastating for humanity. "How long is a lunar cycle?" he asked quietly. 32 of your Earth days," Vex replied. Emma tugged on his sleeve. "Dad, I'm sorry, I didn't know it was special, I was just hungry." James looked down at his daughter, her mother's eyes, her mother's stubborn chin, but his own curiosity that had gotten her into this mess. She was all he had left in the universe. He looked back at the assembled aliens and humans all waiting for his decision. The fate of human-Kethvar relations might hang in the balance, but all he could think about was Emma. Would she be safe while he was gone? Would she understand why he had to leave her? "If I agree," he said slowly. "What happens to my daughter?" "She will remain here under diplomatic protection," Commander Miller assured him. "The station has excellent facilities for children. She'll be safe." James knelt down and took Emma's hands in his. "Listen to me, sweetheart. I have to go away for a little while, but I promise you I will come back. No matter what happens, I will always come back to you." Emma's eyes filled with tears, but she nodded bravely. "Will you bring me a present?" Despite everything, James smiled. "The best present I can think of." He stood up and faced High Commander Vex. "I accept, but I want your word, your personal honor, that my daughter will not be harmed because of this." Vex's eyes glowed brighter for a moment. "You have it, human. Your sacrifice shows true strength. Perhaps there is honor in your species after all." As the Kethvar guards surrounded him, James took one last look at Emma. She was trying so hard to be brave, just like her mother would have been. He had no idea that this moment would change not just his life, but the relationship between two entire species forever. The Kethvar warship Blood Talon was nothing like James had expected. Instead of dark, cramped corridors, the ship's interior was spacious and filled with warm amber light. The walls were covered in intricate carvings that told stories of ancient battles and heroic deeds. "This will be your quarters," Tor said, gesturing to a room that was surprisingly large. "You will stay here when not attending to your duties." James looked around the space. It had a bed, a desk, and what appeared to be a small bathroom. Through a large window, he could see stars streaming past as the ship moved through space. "What exactly are my duties?" James asked. Tor's amber eyes studied him carefully. "You are my bondmate now. You will eat with me, train with me, and fight beside me if needed. You will also serve as my advisor in matters that require different thinking." "Different thinking?" "Humans see the world strangely," Tor explained. "Where we see obstacles, you see opportunities. Where we see enemies, you sometimes see potential allies. This is why the Council keeps humans around, even though you are weak in body." James bit back his first response. Getting into an argument on his first day would not help anyone, especially Emma. A deep horn sounded throughout the ship. Tor immediately straightened. "The evening meal begins. Come." The ship's dining hall was enormous, filled with long tables where hundreds of Kethvar warriors sat eating. The sound of their conversations was like distant thunder. As James and Tor entered, many heads turned to stare at the human. "Ignore them," Tor said quietly. "Most have never seen a human up close. To them, you are like a strange pet." They sat at a table near the front of the room. Other young Kethvar warriors joined them, but they kept glancing at James with curiosity and barely hidden disdain. The food was surprisingly good. Roasted, meat that tasted like a cross between chicken and fish, vegetables that glowed softly, and a drink that sparkled on his tongue. But James noticed something else. The warriors ate in complete silence, their movements formal and precise. "Is talking forbidden during meals?" James asked. Tor looked surprised. "Of course not. Why do you ask? Everyone's so quiet. On human ships, mealtime is when people share stories, laugh, complain about their duties. It's when we connect with each other." "Connect?" One of the other warriors, a scarred veteran named Cole, leaned forward. "What do you mean by this word?" James thought for a moment. We share our experiences, our fears, our hopes, our funny stories. It makes us stronger as a group because we understand each other better. The Kethvar at the table exchanged puzzled looks. Cole spoke again. Warriors do not share fears. Fear is weakness. Really? James asked. Then how do you overcome challenges you've never faced before? How do you learn from each other's mistakes? The question seemed to confuse them. Tor frowned. We follow the teachings of our elders. They have faced every challenge that matters. But what about new challenges? Things your elders never encountered? Before anyone could answer, alarms began, blaring throughout the ship. Warriors immediately jumped to their feet, grabbing weapons that appeared from hidden compartments in the walls. Pirates, Tor explained, his voice grim. They attack trade convoys in this sector. We must defend the cargo ships. What should I do? James asked. Stay close to me. Try not to die. The next hour was chaos. James followed Tor through corridors filled with running warriors, up to the ship's command center where massive screens showed the battle unfolding outside. 3 Kethvar warships faced off against a dozen smaller pirate vessels. High Commander Vex stood at the center of it all, giving orders with calm authority. Full forward assault, crush them quickly. But as James watched the battle, he noticed something the Kethvar had missed. The pirates weren't just attacking randomly, they were herding the Kethvar ships toward an asteroid field. Commander, James called out. Vex turned, surprise flickering in his amber eyes. The bondmate speaks? This is not your place, human. The pirates aren't trying to win, James said quickly. Look at their formation. They're driving you toward those asteroids. There must be mines or hidden ships waiting there. Impossible, Vex growled. Pirates are cowards. They do not use complex tactics. Maybe not usually, James agreed. But what if someone is paying them to do this? What if this isn't random piracy but a planned ambush? Vex hesitated, then looked at his tactical display more carefully. His eyes widened slightly. Navigation. Full stop. All ships hold position. Sir? The navigator asked. Scan the asteroid field. Deep scan. Look for hidden energy signatures. The bridge went silent except for the hum of scanners. After several tense minutes, the navigator spoke. Commander, I'm detecting at least 6 ships hidden in the asteroids. Power signatures suggest they're much larger than the pirates we're currently fighting. Vex's expression was unreadable as he turned to James. How did you see what we missed? James shrugged. I wasn't thinking like a warrior. I was thinking like someone who spent his whole life trying to keep a small cargo ship running with limited resources. You learn to spot when someone's trying to trick you. Interesting. Vex turned, back to his officers. New plan. We retreat but slowly. Make them think we're damaged. When the hidden ships reveal themselves to finish us off, we'll be ready. The battle that followed was brutal but brief. The Kethvar had superior firepower, and once they knew where the real threat was, they dealt with it efficiently. The pirates scattered and the hidden ambush ships were destroyed. Later, as the ship returned to normal operations, Tor found James in his quarters. The other warriors are talking about what happened today, Tor said. They say you have strange wisdom. I just look at things differently, James replied. That's what humans do. We adapt. We find new ways to solve old problems. Tor sat down across from him. Tell me about your daughter. The change of subject caught James off guard. Emma? Why do you want to know? You fought for her today without weapons or armor. Your concern for her safety gave you courage to speak when others would have stayed silent. This is not weakness, is it? James smiled sadly. No, it's not weakness. It's what makes us human. We protect the ones we love, even when it's dangerous. Love. Tor repeated the word like he was tasting something new. This is the connection you spoke of at dinner? Part of it, yes. Tor was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, Perhaps there are things warriors can learn from humans after all. As the ship continued through space, James stared out his window at the stars and thought about Emma. He wondered if she was looking at these same stars from her room on Crossroads Hub, and if she knew that every decision he made was still about protecting her. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but tonight he felt like maybe, just maybe, he could survive this strange new world he'd been thrown into. James woke to the sound of alarms screaming through the ship. Red lights flashed in his quarters as he quickly dressed and ran toward the command center. 3 weeks had passed since he'd joined the Blood Talon, and he'd learned to recognize different alarm patterns. This one meant emergency, the kind that could mean life or death for thousands. The command center was in chaos when he arrived. HFY officers rushed between stations while massive screens showed a planet under attack. James could see explosions blooming across the surface, like deadly flowers. "What's happening?" he asked Tor, who stood near the tactical display. "The colony world of Keth Prime is under attack," Tor replied, his voice tight with anger. "The Rachnid swarm has found us." James had heard whispers about the Rachnid swarm during his time on the ship. They were a hive-minded species that consumed everything in their path: planets, ships, entire civilizations. Most races ran when the swarm appeared. Fighting them was considered suicide. High Commander Vex stood at the center of the chaos, studying the tactical displays with grim determination. 50,000 civilians on that planet, he announced, including 5,000 younglings. "We cannot retreat." "Sir," one of the officers called out, "long-range sensors show the swarm fleet, over 300 ships with more arriving every hour." "How many ships do we have?" James asked quietly. Tor's expression was dark. 47. "The rest of our fleet is scattered across the sector." James felt his stomach drop. Those were impossible odds, even for the mighty HFY. "What's the plan?" "We attack," Vex declared. "Direct assault on their main fleet. We break through, evacuate who we can, then make our final stand." The other officers nodded agreement, but James could see doubt in their eyes. They were brave, but they weren't stupid. This was a death mission. "Commander," James called out. Vex turned, irritation flashing in his amber eyes. "The bondmate speaks again." "This is war, human. There is no place for your strange thinking here." "Maybe that's exactly what you need," James replied. "Your way of fighting is honorable, but the swarm doesn't care about honor. They care about consumption. You can't beat them by playing their game." "Then what do you suggest?" Vex asked, his voice heavy with sarcasm. James moved to the tactical display, studying the planet's surface. Keth Prime was a volcanic world with active mountain ranges and unstable geology. An idea began forming in his mind. Crazy, dangerous, but possibly their only chance. "You can't fight 300 ships with 47, he said. "But what if you didn't have to fight them all at once?" "Explain." James pointed to the planet's surface. "The swarm lands their troops in waves, right? They establish ground positions and spread out from there. But look at this planet's geology. It's basically one giant volcano waiting to explode." "The planet is stable," Tor objected. "It has been for centuries." "Stable but not dead," James corrected. "These fault lines here, and here. If you could trigger seismic activity at precisely the right points." Vex leaned forward, studying the display. "You want to cause earthquakes?" "Better. I want to create a controlled volcanic eruption. Channel the lava flows to funnel the swarm ground forces into kill zones. Make the planet itself fight for you." The command center fell silent. James could see the HFY officers exchanging uncertain glances. Finally, Vex spoke. Even if this mad plan could work, it would require perfect timing. One mistake, and we destroy the very people we're trying to save. "Then we don't make mistakes," James said simply. What followed was the most intense planning session of James's life. Using the ship's geological scanners, they identified the precise points where controlled explosions could trigger volcanic activity. The plan required splitting their small fleet into groups, some to act as bait, drawing swarm ships into position, while others targeted the seismic points. Tor would lead one of the bait squadrons. It was essentially a suicide mission. They had to get close enough to the swarm to hold their attention, but not so close that they'd be destroyed before the plan could work. I should go with you, James told Tor as they prepared for battle. No, Tor replied firmly. Your place is here, coordinating the attack. You understand this plan better than anyone. But the bondmate relationship will mean nothing if we all die today. Tor placed a heavy hand on James's shoulder. You have taught me something, human. Sometimes the greatest courage is not in facing death, but in choosing to live for something greater than yourself. The battle began at dawn, Keth Prime's red sun casting eerie shadows across the volcanic landscape. James watched from the command center as their ships engaged the swarm fleet. The Kethvar fought with desperate courage, but they were vastly outnumbered. First seismic charge ready, the weapons officer reported. Wait, James said, watching the tactical display. The swarm ground forces were spreading across the planet's surface, but they weren't in position yet. Not yet. More swarm ships arrived. The Kethvar fleet was taking heavy casualties. James saw Tor's ship take a direct hit, its shields flaring bright before failing. Sir, we're losing them, one officer called out. I know, James replied, his hands clenched into fists. Every instinct screamed at him to act, but timing was everything. If they triggered the eruptions too early, the swarm would simply retreat and find another landing site. Now? Vex asked. Not yet. 2 more Kethvar ships exploded in brilliant flashes. James thought about Emma, waiting for him on Crossroads Hub. He thought about all the younglings on the planet below. Everything depended on the next few minutes. The swarm ground forces finally moved into the target valleys, following the easiest paths through the mountainous terrain, paths that James had predicted they would take. Now, he said quietly, all ships execute seismic bombardment, Vex commanded. The planet's surface erupted in a chain reaction of explosions. Mountains cracked open, spewing molten rock into the sky. Lava flows raced down the valleys like rivers of fire, catching the swarm forces in carefully designed traps. The plan worked better than James had dared hope. Thousands of swarm creatures were destroyed in the first few minutes, their hive mind coordination disrupted by the planet's violent transformation. But victory came at a price. Many Kethvar ships had been destroyed in the fighting, and Tor's vessel was badly damaged, drifting powerless among the asteroids. Take us to Tor's ship, James ordered. The bondmate does not give orders here, one officer protested. Vex's voice cut through the argument. Do as he says. The human has earned the right to speak. They found Tor's ship broken and bleeding atmosphere. James insisted on joining the rescue team, and they found Tor unconscious but alive in the wreckage of his command center. As they carried him back to the Blood Talon, Tor opened his eyes and looked at James. Did we win? We won, James confirmed. The planet is safe. Tor smiled weakly. Good. I was not ready to meet my ancestors today. Later, as the fleet regrouped and began rescue operations on the planet's surface, Vex approached James on the observation deck. Your plan saved 50,000 lives today, the commander said. Perhaps more importantly, it showed my people that there are ways to fight beyond simple courage and honor. Will that change anything? James asked. Vex was quiet for a long moment. Change is slow among my people. But today you proved that humans have wisdom we lack. That will not be forgotten. James stared out at the scarred but still living planet below. Only 9 days remained of his bondmate service, but he was beginning to realize that some bonds went deeper than law or tradition. He had found something among the Kethvar that he hadn't expected. Respect, friendship, and perhaps the beginning of something that could change both their species forever. James sat beside Tor's medical bed, watching his friend's chest rise and fall with steady breathing. The Kethvar medical bay was surprisingly advanced, with machines that could heal wounds that would be fatal to humans. Tor had been unconscious for 2 days since the battle, but the doctors assured James he would recover fully. You should rest, Dr. Kane, the ship's medical officer, told James. Your friend will wake when he's ready. I'll stay a little longer, James replied. He felt responsible for Tor's injuries. If his plan had been better, if he'd acted sooner, maybe Tor wouldn't have been hurt so badly. On the 3rd day, Tor's amber eyes finally opened. He looked around the medical bay with confusion before his gaze settled on James. "How long was I unconscious?" Tor asked, his voice rough. 3 days. "How do you feel?" "Like I was crushed by a mountain." Tor tried to sit up, winced, then lay, back down. "The colony? The civilians?" "Safe. All 50,000 evacuated to other worlds. The swarm has retreated from this sector." Tor nodded slowly. "Good, that is. Good." He was quiet for a moment, then looked directly at James. "I owe you my life, bondmate, and not just mine, the lives of everyone on that planet." "You don't owe me anything," James said. "We're friends. That's what friends do for each other." "Friends." Tor repeated the word like he was tasting something new. "Yes, I think we are." The medical bay door opened and High Commander Vex entered, followed by several senior officers James didn't recognize. Their armor was different, more elaborate, with symbols that marked them as high-ranking members of the HFY military. "Tor, it's good to see you awake," Vex said. "These are Commanders Dex, Rix, and Nox from the High Command. They came specifically to meet our human friend." James stood up, suddenly feeling very small among the towering aliens. Commander Dex stepped forward, studying James with intense amber eyes. "So this is the human who devised the volcanic strategy," Dex said. "You are smaller than I expected." "Size isn't everything," James replied carefully. "No, it is not." Dex's expression was unreadable. "Your actions 3 days ago have created quite a stir throughout our fleet. Some call you a tactical genius. Others say you were simply lucky." "What do you call me?" James asked. "I call you dangerous," Dex said bluntly. "Not to us, but to our way of thinking. For 3,000 years, the HFY have solved problems with strength, honor, and direct confrontation. You solved an impossible problem by thinking sideways, as you humans say." Commander Rix stepped forward. "The High Command has been debating what to do about you, human. Your bondmate service ends in 6 days, but your actions have raised questions." "What kind of questions?" "Questions about whether we have been limiting ourselves," Commander Nox said. "Your victory on Keth Prime was achieved not through superior firepower or courage, but through creativity and adaptation. These are skills our warriors lack." Vex moved closer to James. "The High Command is prepared to make you an offer, human. An unprecedented offer." James felt his heart skip a beat. "What kind of offer?" "A permanent position as strategic advisor to the HFY fleet," Dex announced. "You would work directly with our commanders, helping them develop new tactics and strategies. The salary would be substantial, and you would have access to technology and resources beyond anything your people have seen." The offer hung in the air like a physical thing. James could hardly believe what he was hearing. A human working as an equal with the HFY military? It was unthinkable just a month ago. "There's more," Rix added. "We would establish a training facility where human children could learn alongside young HFY. Your daughter would receive the finest education in the galaxy." "And the catch?" James asked, because there was always a catch. The commanders exchanged glances. Finally, Vex spoke. "The position would require you to travel with the fleet for long periods, months, sometimes years at a time. Your daughter would need to stay at the academy." James felt the words hit him like a physical blow. "You want me to leave Emma? She would be well cared for," Nox assured him. "The finest teachers, the best facilities. She would want for nothing." "Except her father," James said quietly. The silence stretched uncomfortably. Finally, Tor spoke from his medical bed. "May I speak privately with my bondmate?" The commanders nodded and filed out, leaving James and Tor alone. "This is a great honor they offer you," Tor said once they were alone. "I know. But you are thinking of refusing." James sat back down beside the bed. "Emma has already lost her mother. How can I leave her too? She's 8 years old, Tor. She needs her father. She needs her father to be the man who can protect not just her, but her entire species," Tor replied. "The galaxy is a dangerous place, James. There are threats out there that could destroy humanity. But if you help us develop new ways of fighting, new ways of thinking, You could prevent wars before they start. That's a lot of weight to put on one person's shoulders. Tor struggled to sit up, ignoring James's attempts to help him. Let me tell you something about my people. We respect strength above all else. But in the 3 weeks I've known you, you've shown me different kinds of strength. The strength to sacrifice yourself for your child. The strength to speak truth to power. The strength to find hope where others see only death. James stared at his hands. I don't know if I'm strong enough for this choice. Then don't make it. Alone, Tor said. What would Emma want you to do? The question caught James off guard. He thought about Emma, brilliant, curious, brave Emma who had gotten them into this mess by trying something new and different. What would she say if she knew her father had a chance to help bring peace between species? She'd probably tell me to find a third option, James said with a slight smile. Emma doesn't like it when adults say there are only 2 choices. A third option? James was quiet for a long moment, an idea slowly forming in his mind. It was crazy, probably impossible. But then again, most of his best ideas started that way. What if we didn't have to choose between duty and family? He said slowly. What if there was a way to do both? Tor raised an eyebrow. I'm listening. The commanders mentioned establishing a training facility for human and HFY children. What if that facility was mobile? What if it traveled with the fleet? A school ship? More than that, a cultural exchange program. Human children learning HFY combat techniques and philosophy. HFY children learning human creativity and problem solving. Not just education, but the beginning of real understanding between our species. Tor's eyes widened as he understood. With you as the director. You could serve as strategic advisor and still be close to your daughter. It would be difficult, James admitted. Dangerous sometimes. But Emma is already used to life on a ship. And maybe growing up around both species would help her become something new. Something better than either of us alone. It's ambitious, Tor said. The High Command might not approve. James stood up, feeling more confident than he had in days. Then I guess it's time to show them some more of that human creativity they're so interested in. As he headed for the door to present his counterproposal to the waiting commanders, James thought about Emma. In 6 days, he would see her again. And if his plan worked, he might never have to choose between duty and family again. But first, he had to convince the most powerful military leaders in the galaxy to try something that had never been done before. Just another day in the life of humanity's first diplomatic bondmate. James stood in the conference room aboard the Blood Talon, facing 5 of the most powerful military leaders in HFY space. The silence stretched like a taut wire as they considered his proposal. Through the massive viewport behind them, Crossroads Hub grew larger as the ship approached the station where Emma waited. A mobile academy, Commander Dex said slowly. Human and HFY children learning together on a ship that travels with the fleet? Yes, James replied, trying to keep his voice steady. Think about it. Your warriors learn courage and honor from birth, but they struggle with adaptation and creative thinking. Human children are naturally curious and inventive, but they could benefit from learning discipline and focus. Commander Rix leaned forward. And you believe mixing these traits would benefit both species? I know it would, James said with conviction. Emma has been living among your people for a month now, even if only through our communications. She's already asking questions about HFY culture, wanting to understand your honor codes. Meanwhile, I've watched your warriors struggle with problems that human children solve instinctively. This is untested, Commander Knox objected. Dangerous. What if the children cannot adapt? What if they fight? Then they'll learn to resolve conflicts peacefully, James answered. Isn't that better than our species learning to fight each other as adults? High Commander Vex, who had been silent throughout the discussion, finally spoke. There are practical concerns. Where would this academy ship operate? How would we protect children in a military fleet? What happens when we face combat situations? James had anticipated these questions. The academy ship would stay at the edge of any combat zone, protected by escort vessels. As for where it operates, wherever the fleet goes. The children would see the galaxy, meet different species, learn that the universe is bigger than any one world or culture. And you would run this academy while serving as our strategic advisor? Dex asked. With help, yes. I'm not trained as a teacher, but I know how to solve problems and I know how to protect children. We could recruit human educators and Kethvar combat instructors. Make it a true partnership. The commanders exchanged glances, having one of their silent conversations that seemed to involve subtle changes in posture and eye movement. Finally, Vex nodded. We will consider your proposal. But first we must see if your theory has merit. You will have one test. What kind of test? We dock at Crossroads Hub in 4 hours, Vex explained. You will reunite with your daughter and we will gather a group of young Kethvar currently on the station. If you can demonstrate that human and Kethvar children can learn from each other, we will approve your academy. And if I can't, then you will accept our original offer or return to your normal life. The choice will be yours. James felt his heart racing. Everything depended on the next few hours. I accept. The docking process seemed to take forever. James paced his quarters, trying to prepare for seeing Emma again while also planning how to prove his academy idea would work. When the ship finally docked, he practically ran through the corridors to the airlock. Emma was waiting for him in the station's diplomatic quarters, looking older than her 8 years. The moment she saw him, she ran into his arms. Dad, I missed you so much. James held her tight, feeling tears he hadn't expected. I missed you too, sweetheart. How have you been? Okay, I guess. Station Commander Miller is nice, and I've been going to school with some other human kids, but I want to come with you when you leave. Actually, James said, kneeling down to her level, I might have a way to make that happen, but I need your help with something first. An hour later, James stood in one of the station's large meeting rooms with Emma beside him. Across from them were 6 young Kethvar, each about the equivalent of 10 to 12 human years old. They stared at Emma with obvious curiosity, while she looked back with equal interest. High Commander Vex and the other senior officers watched from the sides of the room, ready to judge whether James's idea had merit. Okay, James said to the mixed group of children. I want to try an experiment. I'm going to give you all a problem to solve, and I want you to work together to find the answer. He activated a holographic display that showed a maze. Not just a flat maze, but a 3-dimensional puzzle with multiple levels and moving walls. Your goal is to get from the entrance to the exit. But here's the catch. The walls move every 60 seconds, and some paths only open when multiple switches are pressed at the same time. The Kethvar younglings immediately began studying the maze with intense concentration, mapping possible routes and calculating timing. Emma, meanwhile, walked closer to the display and began tracing patterns with her finger. This is impossible, one of the Kethvar children, a young female named Lyra, declared after several minutes. The timing is too precise. No single person could reach all the switches in sequence. Maybe that's the point, Emma said quietly. Maybe you're not supposed to do it alone. The Kethvar children turned to look at her. Explain, Lyra said. Well, look here. Emma pointed to several sections of the maze. If one person goes this way and another goes that way, you could press these switches at the same time. And if someone else waits here... Suddenly, the Kethvar children were clustering around Emma, studying her observations. James watched with growing amazement as his daughter naturally took on the role of coordinator, while the young Kethvar contributed their tactical thinking and precise timing. She's right, Lyra said with excitement. If we work as a team, we can solve this. What followed was unlike anything James had seen. Emma's creative thinking combined with the Kethvar children's discipline and focus created a problem-solving approach that was better than either group could manage alone. They not only solved the maze but found 3 different ways to do it. Again, one of the young Kethvar called out. Give us another puzzle. Emma grinned. Can we make teams? I want to learn how you think about tactics. James looked over at the watching commanders and saw something he hadn't expected. Wonder. These seasoned warriors were seeing their own children laugh and collaborate with a human child, sharing ideas and building on each other's strengths. After, 2 more hours of various challenges and games. Vex called a halt to the demonstration. Enough, the commander announced. We have seen what we needed to see. The children protested, but were quickly herded away by their guardians. James found himself alone with Emma and the senior officers. Well? He asked. Commander Deck spoke first. Your daughter is remarkable. She thinks like water, flowing around obstacles rather than trying to break through them. And she made our younglings think differently too, Rix added. I saw Lyra try approaches she never would have considered before. Vex stepped forward. The High Command approves your Academy proposal. We will provide a ship, resources, and our, finest instructors. You will serve as director and continue your role as strategic advisor. James felt relief wash over him. Thank you. I won't let you down. See that you don't, Vex replied. Because this academy will be watched by both our species. If it succeeds, it could change everything. If it fails, it won't fail, Emma said suddenly. Everyone turned to look at her. If you put kids together and let them be friends, good things happen. That's just how kids work. 6 months later, James stood on the observation deck of the Academy ship New Horizon, watching his daughter lead a mixed group of human and Kethvar children through a physics experiment. They were laughing together, arguing about solutions and learning from each other's mistakes. The Academy had exceeded everyone's expectations. The children didn't just tolerate each other. They formed genuine friendships that crossed species, lines. Human creativity sparked Kethvar innovation, while Kethvar discipline helped human students focus their natural curiosity. More importantly, the Academy had already prevented 2 potential conflicts. When trade disputes arose with other species, James found himself with young advisors who could think both like humans and like Kethvar, finding solutions that pure military thinking couldn't achieve. Tor, now fully recovered and serving as the Academy's head of tactical instruction, joined James at the viewport. Your daughter asked me an interesting question today, Tor said. What's that? She wanted to know if other species have children who think differently too. She thinks we should invite them to join the Academy. James smiled. And what did you tell her? I told her that sounds like exactly the kind of impossible idea her father would love. As James watched Emma explain something excitedly to her mixed group of friends, he realized that his daughter had been right from the beginning. Sometimes the best solutions came not from choosing between 2 options, but from finding a third way that nobody had considered before. The Academy ship continued through space, carrying its precious cargo of young minds toward a future where species barriers might become bridges instead of walls. And in the cargo bay, a small bowl of glowing fruit sat as a reminder that sometimes the biggest changes started with the smallest accidents.